Danny Briere has done it, Charlie. He's made a trade. Our long national nightmare is over. Danny has closed on a deal, and we have the specifics. Obviously, we've been hearing about this since Thursday night's game, the shutout loss to the Islanders, but it's real. It's done. It's official. The Flyers have tweeted it. Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are headed to Calgary. And in return, the Flyers receive Andrei Kuzmenko, Jakob Pelletier. It's a second-round pick this year and a seventh-rounder in 2028, which just honestly,
it's very funny.
For comedic purposes, my favorite piece of this deal. We talked about it on postgame. We weren't sure of everything that was going down. Thought maybe there was a first involved. Thought maybe there could be a prospect. But this is the deal. A couple of picks, including a second. Andrei Kuzmenko, who's had his ups and downs in a short NHL career after coming over from the KHL in his mid-20s, and Jakob Pelletier, a former first-round pick who everyone describes as a high-energy depth piece. Charlie, let's get your take now that we know it's official, and any fun stuff you can tell us about figuring out what the hell went down tonight.
I think for me, this is just a clarifying trade. It clarifies how Danny Briere sees certain guys. It clarifies a bit more about where they see themselves. It's not like this is an amazing return by any means. To me, the two key pieces here are the second round pick, which solid. It's a solid pick. It's fine. It's a pick. It's not just a pick. A second round pick's a good pick. It's not a great pick. It's not a first round pick, but a second round pick's a valuable piece. Teams don't just throw them away. And Jakob Pelletier, I actually think, is intriguing. There's been some, I guess, disparaging of him because the idea is, well, he got waived at the beginning of the year, so they could have got him for nothing. And I guess that's true. That said, a lot of guys get waived at the beginning of the season when everybody's sending guys through waivers. It doesn't necessarily mean they lack value. It just means that teams think they can slip guys through because everybody's slipping intriguing prospects through. And Pelletier over the last 2 months has played quite well in the NHL. So his value is higher now than it was back then. So don't think that's quite fair. That said, if you want to use that to act like he's nothing, fair. But I think those are your two key pieces. Neither are blue chip pieces by any means. A second round pick isn't a blue chip asset. Neither is a I would say like a B- young player who maybe the Flyers see more in than Calgary does. But it's something. It shows that, number one, the Flyers are rebuilding. They are selling guys. They are looking to gather future assets still. So if you remained skeptical of that, well, they're doing it. The other thing is that they are still very intent upon finding guys who fit. Because to me, more than anything, that's what this trade is. This is a trade where they're taking two guys who they determined, both in terms of their talent and skill level, and then also the idea of John Tortorella as the arbiter of who's got it in them to be part of this. It's pretty clear at this point that they did not believe that either Joel Farabee or Morgan Frost should be part of this. And this is them moving on, opening up spaces, opening up cap space for it. To me, it's a combination of confirming that they're in a rebuild and selling, because this will make the team worse, I think, the rest of this year. So if you're looking for a team to get a higher pick, this shouldn't hurt that regard. But it's also an acknowledgement that some of the pieces we have don't fit, and it might be time to move some of those guys out.
Yeah, that was that's my favorite part of this, the 2028 seventh rounder notwithstanding. My favorite part of this is, one, I'm happy that what I'm seeing from some of these guys is what they're seeing. Like, I like that alignment of, you know what, Farabee, we have now an 81 game sample size. The last 31 games of last season, the first 50 of this year, he's got 13 goals and 28 points. That's a whole season's worth of games. 13 goals, 28 points. He's making $5 million through the 27-28 season. You can't do that. Like, you can't possibly be a rebuilding team and then say, yeah, this is just a guy we're going to hold on to. And with Morgan Frost, we all know the struggles he's had with the coach, the struggles he's had with inconsistency. These guys didn't fit. They, at their age and what we've seen out of them over the last few seasons, I just don't see a world in which they are a part of the the next great Flyers team, as we like to say. So I'm happy that they have decided it is time to move on. I'm happy that they've made tough decisions about players that I was hoping they would make tough decisions about. I've been talking all season. Morgan Frost is in a contract year. You want to bridge him again? You want to make a long term commitment to him again? I don't want to do any of those things. It's time to move on. I absolutely would have liked a better return. I mean, when the rumor was maybe a first, maybe that defensive prospect who had like 90 some points in his last OHL season. Yeah, that would have been cool. It would have been nice. But the cap space, both from whatever you might have had to re-sign Frost for, plus the $5 million for the next few seasons of Farabee, that's an asset right there. As is a second round pick. We now know the Flyers have, was it 4 seconds?
Yeah,
4 second
four
rounders on
seconds.
top of the all the first round picks they
Yeah,
have,
three
and
firsts, 4 seconds.
yeah, so 7 picks in the first 2 rounds, and some of them could be pretty good assets. They have the Ducks pick in there, their own, and as you said, like, can't imagine the winning percentage is going up anytime soon. I know, yeah, they didn't get any blue chip pieces in return, but they didn't trade out any blue chip pieces. But these were NHL regulars for them. They didn't make the team better by getting rid of them, so we'll see how that end goes. But I am just happy that it appears they are taking steps to make that next move. And when you look at the cap situation, you get rid of that Farabee contract for a Kuzmenko contract that expires at the end of this year. You have Tony D coming off the books. The Cal Peterson contract comes off the books. Even Cam Atkinson, there's another year, but it goes down like over $500,000, I believe, from his cap hit this year to next year. You still have Kevin Hayes for another season, but you're starting to at least see things move and move in a direction towards what the plan was all along. Like, this is a rebuilding move. Hopefully they make more. Hopefully we see Rasmus Ristolainen go. Hopefully there are other moves to open up spots. That's the initial reaction. I wanted to get your thoughts, Charlie, on how they work the roster now. Do you think? Do you think it's going to be Kuzmenko and Pelletier every night? Do you think we see some more call-ups like we've seen in the last few games? How do you think this goes? I know you don't know what they're going to do, but how would you handle it, and how do you think they're going to handle it?
Well, I don't think they're. I think it's as easy as just looking at it. They traded out 2 NHL players. They got back 2 NHL players. Like Jakob Pelletier would need to be waived to go down to the AHL, so he's staying. They clearly like him enough to trade for him. As for Kuzmenko, yeah, they traded for him. He's on an expiring contract. I think he's more of a, intriguing flyer type. Like, think of him kind of as like Denis Gurianov on steroids, because obviously Kuzmenko has actually had a 70+ point season before. Gurianov was never close to that, but similar concept. Get a guy who's on an expiring deal, see if maybe you can get more out of them than Calgary could this season. If you can't, well, you wave goodbye to him. No harm, no foul. If you can, then maybe you'll look to potentially re-sign him. But I think for me, this isn't a like clearing space for more kids that are down in the minors, because where would the space come from? Plus, I'm unconvinced that any of the kids down there really are ready. I will say that. Like, I know you said on the show, like, I want to see Tuamal. Tuamal has been pretty inconsistent this year. I don't think he's ready for the NHL. You might want to see him because he's a fun name and he's a top prospect, but like, I don't think he's ready. And I don't think this trade opens up any spaces for anybody like that. Now, could they swap some guys in and out? Obviously, Adam Jennings was up tonight. Maybe they could move some defensemen in and out to give more guys a shot. But no, to me, this is more about identifying that the Frost and Farabee weren't a fit. And I think Farabee is the more intriguing name for me, because
Yeah.
long term, Luchenko's on the way. Couturier is not getting traded unless you basically force him to waive the no move. Um, and the idea of like, well, they all know that he in 1C. Well, those are your top 3 centers. If Morgan Frost isn't capable of being a 1C, where does he fit? And it's abundantly clear he's not capable of being a 1C at the NHL level in my mind. I don't see him ever taking that leap if he hasn't already. Farabee's the interesting one to me, because I still think there's something there. I do. I wonder if another team can unearth it. I think the Flyers were just reaching the point where they were afraid the longer they waited. the more his value was going to go down, that it just wasn't working here. And this
Yeah.
allowed them to get out from under the deal before they would have to pay to get out from under a $5 million cap hit. That said, you know, I kind of knew that Frost was, you know, I thought it was going to be this summer, honestly, but I figured they were going to move on from him in the near future. Farabee, I wasn't sure about, but they made a statement that, because the thing about Farabee too is that he really wants to be a Flyer, you know, even more so than Frost. Because I think with Morgan Frost, it's kind of like, does he loves being with his teammates, he loves the city, but deep down he has to know that his career is going to benefit being away from John Tortorella. Whereas I think Joel Farabee legitimately really wanted to be in Philadelphia, and he wanted to be part of this locker room. He was a lead, an emerging leader in this room, and it was probably tough for them to make the decision that he wasn't part of this, but they made the decision that he's not part of this, and now he's gone, and now you're going to see who's going to step up in his absence.
Well, hopefully, Jonesy and company fly fly Farabee in for the Birds Parade in a couple of weeks, because I know he was probably looking forward to that. Only want to go a couple more minutes here, Charlie, and I'm just thinking like the big talk now, and there's people who are always like looking for the next okay, and this means they're going to get Pedersen because like, do you think opening up the space right now means it could lead to something bigger in season? Obviously, they know they have to do something bigger at some point because how the hell do you get the high end talent that you need without going out and doing something to get it? But do you think this could be the first domino of a few?
I mean, I think they're going to make more moves. I don't necessarily think they're going to make more moves before the deadline. Now, I think Ristolainen is very much on the table, to be sure. And they've obviously made it clear with this move that they are willing to sell, that they are open for business, and they are willing to sell for future assets right now, which to me very much swings the door wide open for Rasmus Ristolainen. Now, in terms of, go out and trade for Pedersen, yeah, I know fans want that desperately. They want, or not even Pedersen, they just want them to trade for some big name that will get them excited. Do I think the Flyers are going to make moves to add pieces at some point in this calendar year? Yes, I do. I truly do believe that. I do not know if it's going to happen at the deadline, and I would caution people to be too optimistic that they're going to make a huge ad before the beginning of March. But hey, if you want to dream about it, feel free. And they did show today that they can indeed make trades. They can indeed make moves and make some decisions. So, hey, if you were worried that they just weren't willing to do anything, you should feel better about where they're at tonight than you did earlier today.
I know this is always like, hey man, if Farabee goes on to be a 75-point player and Morgan Frost catches on and this second round pick is the next Isaac Ratcliffe, it's like, well, what the hell was the trade then? But right now, instant reaction. It's 1:05 a.m. on Friday morning. How would you grade this one?
Eh, I don't know. Probably like a B minus, C plus. It would have, the return is underwhelming. I will say that.
Yeah.
That said, uh, it's underwhelming because I've seen, in particular, what Joel Farabee can be when he's playing well. But if you've made the determination that he's not part of the fit and you just need to move him out because he's just not going to be part of this and you got to rip the band-aid off, like, this is what you were going to get for him. And if you didn't think it was going to get better, the value was only going to go further and further down. So I get it. I get it if you determine that these guys just don't fit. It is just an underwhelming return. It's nothing special. It's not awful. Again, a second round pick is certainly not valueless, but it's not a return that makes you jump out of your seat by any means. And I can't give it a great score, especially when somebody like Farabee had significantly more value a few years ago. But a few years ago, you thought he was going to be part of the future. So I get it. It doesn't mean it excites me, but I get it.
No, yeah, I would go. I think B minus is fair. I like what it opens up. I like that they did something, that they made determinations, the way you called it, clarifying earlier. I think that's important. I think showing the path, or at least hinting to it, it helps us all a little bit. I said on the post game, this is kind of the downside of the long evaluation process. Like, yeah, when you determine guys aren't part of the future, it's probably because they underwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that has been the case with Frost and Farabee. So when they decide to trade them, it ain't a first-round pick. It's not an organization's top couple of prospects. It's this. So I can't give it like an A. I'm not pumped up about the trade, but I'm happy they did something. I'm happy. I think it could lead to some other stuff, and I'm happy we didn't have to talk about that Islanders game much in post game because that was horrible,
Yeah, it
So
wasn't
thank you
great.
for that, Danny. Appreciate that. All right, that is pretty much all the time we have for you on this emergency reaction pod to the Flyers trade with Calgary. Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee headed to the Flames. A Andrei Kuzmenko, Jakob Pelletier, a second-round pick, and a future seventh coming back to Philly. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Make sure you're following us right here on the YouTube. We get the shows every single day, and when things like this happen, we give you emergency reactions as well, so make sure you're following us right here, and follow us on Twitter, and read Charlie's article. It just hit just a few minutes ago, allphly.com. Sign up to be a diehard if you're not one yet. All right, that's it. My name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until next time, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.